Go. Good morning. This is Mika. Welcome to Single to Mrs. I pray you all had a wonderful weekend. I pray that you all have had times with your families. I pray that you all have just enjoyed each other. I pray that you have blessed somebody else's life because that is so important to not only think about yourselves and your own family, but to think about others right now and the times that we are in. This morning, it's going to be a little bit longer video, so I want y'all to hang in there with me. But this is something that is truly close to my heart. It is one of my passions that I had before. If you look at my other videos, it's something that was close to my heart before I started in the medical field, and that was education. I worked in education for many years straight out of high school when I started my journey with God. And one of the things that really touched me was the fact that I was always, very, very close with the children, but they always respected me and they loved on me and I loved them back. And I know a lot of us are in these times where we get a little shaken up by our own children and we feel like our children are straying away from us. But this is one thing that I need you to know. When it comes to children, you have to stand your ground. You do not allow your children to run over you. We love our children, we care about our children, and we want to do everything for our children. But we also have to have boundaries with our children. We have to have a separation from our children. And when I say separation, I mean, they have to have time to themselves. And I always say that, when children, are acting up or misbehaving, I don't say go to timeout. I say you need time by yourself because that gives them time to process things. Timeout had, to me, as being an educational leader, was always something that I did not like to hear myself. So it was always, okay, you need time by yourself. You need to process what you did wrong. You need to process your thoughts. And then when you are done, you can come back to me and then we're going to talk about it. We're going to walk through, we're going to role play if need be, what happened and what you could have done better. So, you don't always have to, shake a child up or get them all worked up. Just, you can be very humble with a child, and that's what some people don't understand. If you talk to your child in the most calmest, humble way, you can get a lot done. I always, with my own children, I give them that mama look. And most of the time, they know that mama look means you better tighten up now because the next step is not going to be nice. And what I mean by that is that we're going to go into a deeper situation. We're going to go into a deeper conversation. And it's not going to be nice because you don't want the mean mommy. And when I say the mean mommy, I mean, you got to let your children know that you're not playing games with them. You got to put a little fear into your children. Like they say, the fear of God. You should be raising your children with the fear of God and them, letting them know that they're not out here to play games. God is not going to play with them. There are 10 commandments. We got a list of 10 commandments. And these children need to follow the 10 commandments. No, I'm not perfect. No, our children are not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But we need to remember the 10 commandments and what God laid out for us and for us to follow. And, I can be real and I can be honest. I used to tell my daughter, I tell my children now, I tell my grandchildren, you lie, you're going straight to hell, because that's what my granny used to tell us. You steal, you're going to hell. Because that's the truth. You got to be real with these children. Stop trying to sugarcoat and baby them all the time. You cannot do that. You have to be real with your children. You have to be straightforward with your children. For many years when I was in the education system, like I said, I started off in daycare centers and I went into the school system and I went into the YMCA and I was childcare managers and all of that. But my main thing, like I said, when I started in education, I was like a pro of guiding children's behavior. And that's because, I always found different ways around different situations that kids, like whether it was biting, whether it was, peeing on themselves, whether it was fighting or whatever the situation is. I have many years in that and training and lessons and all of that. And like I said, and so I know how kids can be sometimes. I know how they can be sneaky. I know how they can lie. I know how children can be manipulative. I know how children can be so disrespectful. And I'm a firm believer, y'all, this stuff starts in the household. And this is stuff that we need to wrap up right now. One of the things that I can say it burns me up is to see a teenager or a young teen or preteen, however, walk past you on a sidewalk. Now you almost shoulder to shoulder, and as an adult, as an elder to them now, they walk past you and they don't even say good morning. You know, you have to be the ones to speak to these children first. And that is not how it's supposed to be. These children are supposed to speak to an elder every time they see them. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you doing? You know, like, we got to get it together in our households. We have to start doing better with our children. We have to start implementing manners in our household. Thank you. No, thank you. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You start that in that household. You don't wait until they get out with other people and then you want to start implementing these things or say, "Oh, I was so embarrassed how my child was acting out in public." Well, it starts with you, parents. It starts with you. These children could be doing so much better. You know, years ago, like I said, I worked at the YMCA years ago, and I was a child care manager. And like I said, years ago, I worked at the YMCA as a child care manager. And I had a child who was just out of control, just out of control. And you know, me as being the loving person that I am and just trying to help a child, I went to the parent and I was talking to the parent about the child's behavior and so much, so forth. And, you know, thinking that the parent would work with me on trying to help the child so we could work together, kind of like teaming up. But no, that didn't work out the way I thought it was going to work out. The parent was just as bad as the child. So then I started realizing, you know, it starts at home. You know, the parents' attitude and how they came off at me for me trying to talk to them about their child's behavior and how it could be so much better, and you know how what we could do to help this child. But like I said, it just didn't work out. So I just feel like, you know, we just gotta aim for better for our children. We gotta want better for our children. Remember, these children are gonna grow up and they're gonna be adults one day. They're gonna be us one day, and we're gonna be older. And I'm gonna be honest with you all, guys. Me being in the medical field as well, I have seen so much of children, so many children that have went from young children, they grow up, the parents love on them, they have bad behavior, they just acting, just running amok. And then they become adults themselves, and their parents become elderly, unable of helping themselves, not able to uh, change themselves, not being able to feed themselves. And these are the parents that have raised these young children. These children that were acting up in the past, they were allowing to just run over top of them. You know, they were trying to put all their love into these children. And then these children became adults themselves. And then they're the ones who put the parents in the nursing home and don't even come see them. And you hear these stories all the time. If you've ever worked in healthcare, you hear these stories from these parents of how I did all of these things for this child when they were coming up. And look what they did for me. I'm in here. You know, I remember one night I was working in the hospital and I had a lady. She kept calling her son, calling her son, calling her son. And remind you, this son was like in a whole nother state. And she kept calling him because that was her only child. And she wanted, she needed confirmation on some things. And she wanted to let him know that she was in the hospital and she was going to get her leg amputated and all of this stuff. This boy would not even answer the phone for his mother. He didn't even pick up the phone. I tried calling for her. I tried leaving messages. Now, remind you, she's going through a trying time in her life. She's going to lose a leg. And her only child, the child that she has raised since birth, she said how good she was to this boy. And all he had to do to repay her in return, y'all, was take all her money, take the brand new camper that she had bought for herself and her family. He just didn't care. You know, see, this is why I'm telling you, you can't always spoil your children. You can't always love on them. You got to have discipline in your household. Because like I said, when you get older and you're looking for this love from these children, they're not going to give it to you. They're spoiled. They're going to just do their own thing. But you have to remember, y'all, you reap what you sow. You definitely reap what you sow. And in return, you get these children like this. They become adults. They don't want to talk to you. They could care less about you. So that's why I'm saying it starts young. And young is what I mean. It starts at a toddler. If your child is touching stuff and you don't want them to touch stuff, tap that hand. There's nothing wrong with tapping that hand, because it's a reflex of letting them know, hey, that's not nice. We do not do that. It snaps them back. And sometimes you got to have a snap back to wake them up, to let them know, oh, okay, wait a minute now. That's hot, just like a child to touch a stove that's hot. You don't want your child touching that stove because they could burn themselves. That's just what you got to do. You got to rein them in the right way. Just keep guiding them. Keep letting them know, this is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is how you talk to people. This is how you don't talk to people. Do not ever give a child empty threats. If you tell a child, I'm going to spank your bottom, you do that one more time, I'm going to spank your bottom. You keep telling them, you do that again, I'm going to spank your bottom. I've seen that. I've heard that myself. I've even done that as a parent years ago. And that don't help them kids. You have to, like I said, do never get a child empty threats. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're going to put them in a space where they need to have time by themselves, put them in time by themselves. Let them think about what they did wrong. Because like I said, when they become adults, they're going to think, oh, okay, it's okay, Mom and daddy never said nothing to me, or mama never said nothing to me, or daddy never said nothing to me, so I can do it. And this is where you get these children in the system that think they can do whatever they want to. And that's how they end up there. You gotta put a lockdown on these kids, y'all, because, they're our future. They are our future. And they're going to be the ones that's taking care of us when we get old. So if you don't put any boundaries, if you don't lay your foundation now, these kids are going to be out of control, and you're not going to be able to do anything with them. So I just wanted to talk to you all about that this morning, because I know I prayed about it. This is what God needs y'all to know. We have to take care of our children. We have to take care of the future. So, like I said, take care of your families. Take care of your children. Raise your children in the right way, you all. You can love on them. You can spoil them a little bit, but don't make them rotten, because that's not good. And just hang in there. If you have any more questions, concerns, or anything about guidance children's behavior, about discipline, or whatever, please leave me a comment down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. I love children. Like I said, that was my first love. That was my first passion in life, was to work with children. So I have seen it all. I have pretty much done it all. And it has been nothing but a blessing for me in my lifetime. And I have, like I said, I have children of my own. I was a 18-year-old mama. I was a 36-year-old mama. I'm a 40-year-old mama. And I'm a grandmother. So I have experienced all age levels and groups and all of that. So I've been there. So, like I said, and one important thing I want to let you all know, children were not born into this world with a handbook, with a pamphlet, with instructions. And it's okay. Don't beat yourself up too much if your child is acting up or doing something they have no business. It's okay. You know, that's why there's help out there. That's why there's counselors and teachers and people like myself who want to help you, who want to love on you, want to love on your child. But don't, get yourself too worked up and think, I'm doing the worst job ever. No, because like I said, children were not born with an instruction manual. I worked on labor and delivery. I worked on mother baby myself. Children come into this world and we look at them and we thank God that we have them. But then you're like, what do I do next? So it's all right. But anyway, you all have a wonderful and blessed day and you take care. Please make sure that you like my channel, you subscribe to my channel if you have not already done so, that you share my channel with somebody. Because you never know. Your friend, your neighbor, your coworker could be going through this right now and they need to hear this. So help them out, guys. All right. I love you.